Hey, what's going on, guys? I hope everybody has stayed safe. From everybody that was on the channel yesterday that we were talking to, I know I was just talking to Joan on the chat. Feel free to post where you are watching from, especially if you are in the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. The center now far away from Puerto Rico, but the heavy rain and the catastrophic flooding continues. So we're going to get on that. I'll show you the latest radar in a second. First, just wanted to get you guys kind of up to speed where the current situation is now in terms of where the center is. And we're talking to Joan about got interest in Samana here, and here is the center. This is the high res GOES 16 satellite image, and you see where the center is really coming west. This is something that Joan and I were just talking about in the chat again. The center right in here, and it looks like it's going to continue its path, so maybe making a secondary landfall on the Dominican Republic before kind of working its way further to the north and then heading towards the Turks and Caicos. So again, with that further westerly shift, even than what we were looking at yesterday in some of the high-res modeling, if you're tuning in from the Turks and Caicos, especially the southeast side, be mindful of that because you are likely going to get into hurricane conditions as well. So yeah, not a good situation at all for the Dominican Republic as they are taking the brunt of what was a 90-mile-per-hour storm, I believe, as of the 8 a.m. update from the National Hurricane Center, that we still have a 90-mile-per-hour hurricane moving across the terrain of the Dominican Republic. So that's what we're going to be watching in the center in the short term. There are more thunderstorms erupting around the center. So again, this thing, unfortunately, still very healthy even as it's crossing over land. I saw your tweet front when I woke up this morning about some of the damage. I've seen some of the reporting out of Puerto Rico as well, and it looks devastating, as we unfortunately thought it might. Have you been able to talk to your family? I hope that they are okay. I know we were watching several different towns in Puerto Rico yesterday, so I hope that they are doing okay. I hope you've been able to get in touch with them as we watch the flooding. I'm going to shift and head to the radar picture of Puerto Rico, so bear with me, and we're going to go over some of the heavy rain that still continues. Again, the center of Fiona, far, far away now. It is crossed, and it's now impacting the Dominican Republic, but the heavy rain continues. So as I switch this for you guys that are interested in Puerto Rico, we're going to bounce back and forth between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. The Virgin Islands were doing much better this morning. And then we're going to head up towards some of the long-term life of Fiona, because this could be a very serious situation for Bermuda in a couple of days, as well as a strengthening Fiona heads up in your direction. My gosh, you are not kidding. That video was insane of the bridge. I mean, the power of water. There's nothing like it, and it just took that away. The good news is I have some of the flood gauges up, some of the flood reports, and there are some improvements in terms of the river gauges. So I will show you that. We don't have as many in major flood stage. We have a few still in moderate flood stage. But we've at least seen some improvements in terms of the rivers coming back down and the streams from the catastrophic flash flooding from yesterday. And we are still, unfortunately, dealing with that flooding. As I move the map back over to us in Puerto Rico now, and we will click on the radar, and you see it there. I mean, it's just good. Well, I'm glad that they are all safe. Thankful for that. Was praying for that. I can't even imagine how shook up. And I mean, I just want this rain to stop for them and for everybody on the island. So I'm glad to hear that they are safe. But more heavy rain is coming in. It's certainly, the worst of it is over in Puerto Rico. It's not pretty right now by any means, but the worst of it is over. The rain is certainly still coming down on the eastern side of the island, but it has, relatively speaking anyway, lightened up a little bit from San Juan down into Arroyo and then into parts of the Virgin Islands, into Culebra as well. The heaviest stuff is coming back into Ponce after our relative break at times late yesterday and overnight. The last time we went live last evening at about 8 o'clock, there was that drier air coming into the western side of the island, which at least helped give us some kind of break anyway. So at least some better news there. But now we have some of the heaviest stuff coming back into Ponce, and you still see it there. I don't know how well you can see some of those green lines that are there, but every area in Puerto Rico, the entire island is still under a flash flood warning again for the likelihood of flash flooding occurring or likely to occur. And again, with this next push of rain, that is no joke. I want to show you the storm total here, what the radar thinks had fall. That's some good news. Report establishing service in various cities. Okay, so that's at least some kind of positive update. Look at some of these radar estimated rainfall amounts. And again, we've had ground truth. I do think now that some places are going to exceed 2 feet of rain, potentially even more than 30 inches of rain. So again, this is just absolutely devastating. 30 inches of rain is a lot anywhere. When you add terrain in the mix, though, it makes it way, way worse. And if you're familiar with the terrain and topography of Puerto Rico, you know how mountainous part of the island is. So it's not good news. I want to show you the radar estimating here and just how much rain it thinks fell last night. And I believe I've seen ground truth even more than what the radar is estimating. Again, so the radar just taking what it's seeing from the computer as the rain moves in. And again, it looks like it's maxing out at 15 inches. I don't think the scale goes higher than that. And I think that's what we're seeing with here. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why we're seeing that black color here. Oh, that is great news. That is great news. Okay. So I was fearful when we were on live with you guys yesterday when we had that breaking update that the power grid failed, that it would be a very long time before anybody saw power again in Puerto Rico unless you had a generator. But that is very, very good news that there are at least parts of the island that are starting to get some power back. So I know we talked a lot yesterday about how they've done a disservice, but at least it seems like they are working hard to get some power back. So that is good, and I hope that they can keep that power. Again, the wind is really backing off. It's still raining heavily there at times, but I do think the worst is over, at least for your family. Just outside of San Juan there in Bayaman. And on the western side of the island, we still have some more heavy rain to go. But the situation is going to improve. Ethan, I did not see the 6Z GFS. Are you I can pull that up real quick and look. I did not look at the 6Z though. Is it referring to Fiona or another system? I was just breaking down here the westerly shift overnight into the Dominican Republic and then Puerto Rico. So I've not looked long term too much as to what happens with or what potentially could happen with that. So if you want to, you can post in the comments there what you have seen, and I can pull that up and we can go. Okay, so it's a new wave. Well, let's hope it stays away. Where did it put it? I caution the GFS has been out to lunch a lot this season with developing these waves. So I'll try to bring that up now as we are doing that. While we're doing that, I'm going to put back the high-res satellite as the eye is moving right over. Again, the Dominican Republic taking it on the chin again with the strongest of Fiona moving on through now. And again, we are still dealing with the very, very heavy rain on the island of Puerto Rico. Unfortunately, you can see the thunderstorm still bubbling up as I zoom this out for you. And again, it has that very, I mean, it is a hurricane. but it has that very ominous look. So when he's referring to a new wave, it's a new tropical wave. Before they consolidate into a concise area of low pressure, it's just an open wave, as we call it. That's what it kind of looks like on the weather map. So when a new wave comes out, it's a tropical wave. So it's a very weak area of low pressure, kind of elongated. In a situation like this, when you're dealing with a tropical storm or a hurricane, it's a very tightly wound center, and you can see the spin. So there's no low level spin yet. And it's one of the things, the job of the hurricane hunters to go in before it becomes a tropical depression. One of the definitions to become tropical is for it to have a tightly closed center rather than an open wave. So that's one of the things that they look for before it's officially classified as a tropical depression or tropical storm. Forgive me for getting up in your face. I'm just typing to pull up the latest GFS to see where that wave may have come off of or may be heading to, and just to see if what the stock is. Again, I caution the GFS, especially the 6Z. There's lack of upper air data into it most times. So maybe not the most reliable. So we would have to see if there's going to be, if it kind of holds. Let's see. I have that up now, and I can pull that over. And again, this is on Tropical Tidbits. It's a great website to kind of track the tropics here. Okay, so I would imagine that is what you're referring to. This crazy phantom. Okay, I know that now that's what you're referring to. So yeah, so that's certainly, it gets your attention. I wouldn't put too much stock in it just yet. I don't think that there's been any. I think that might be the first time that has popped up, but I have not looked that far into the future. If Ethan is still with us. Sorry for just the rapid fire. I'm just looking to see. Okay, so that gives me a little more confidence here that may just be okay. So the euro is showing it. The good news is that the 0Z GFS did not have it, so this just popped up in the 6Z solution. And that is something that the GFS has done a lot this year, especially in the Caribbean. As it gets these tropical waves in there, it has really tried to ramp them up quick. I think that we would have had like 3 or 4 hurricanes in the Caribbean this year if the GFS would have been correct in its solution. So it's one of the things I really, really preach here. Is that to not put stock in just to one model run and to look at the ensembles. And if you stick around, Ethan, I can pull up some of those GFS and European ensembles, and we can look at that together to see how much confidence, I guess, if you will, if you have in the model, if more of those ensemble members are biting on development there. Certainly, as we get deeper into September and then really flip the page in October, a situation like this does become more likely when you fire up a little wave in and around the Lesser Antilles, Leeward or Windward Islands, and then it gets into the Caribbean. We know the Caribbean is jet fuel. We saw what happened with the not rapid intensification of Fiona, but it got its act together on its way to Puerto Rico, unfortunately. And again, we touched on this a little yesterday, just a lot of the untapped fuel energy because of the very quiet hurricane season prior to Fiona. So there's not a lot of churned up water. Yes, yeah. So I'm hearing that as well. That, and I know that there was, I believe anyway, the emergency declaration prior to the storm impacting Puerto Rico too. So it certainly seems like you are going to get help there quickly from stateside anyway. Um, and that is good. I know there's in and around Central Florida where this live stream is from. I know that there's a lot of organizations collecting things here, getting ready to send to Puerto Rico once it is safe to get in there. So hearing that again, that there are already boots on the ground there and they were prepared for that. That is again out of an awful situation. It's great to hear that help is already there and more help is on the way. And it's certainly and it's certainly good that some people have power. All right, Joan is asking, where exactly is it in the DR, and are they predicting a landfall in Samana? So I'm going to pull up the official track for you here, but I'm going to zoom in for you on the Dominican Republic, and it's on the other side of the bay. So there was just and I'm in really close, and I don't have radar data to show you, unfortunately, because I don't have access to the radar in the Dominican Republic because of it's not the United States, and I don't have that radar data. But here is about the approximately where you are looking for. And here is the center. Let me just get this off. It looks to me kind of close its eye off just a little bit again. But here it is. And it did that because it kind of weakened as it moved over land. So there is the center. The strongest part of the storm, I'm going to turn on, I think, the infrared satellite. It might help us kind of see a little bit more on the intensity of these thunderstorms. So bear with me a little bit. Okay, so I don't want to call this good news. I never want to call it good news when we're being impacted by a tropical system, specifically a hurricane. But it does look like with the eye closing like that, it may have weakened slightly. Again, it is still very, very nasty where you are looking for in Samana. Certainly, you see these little ticks here of that rust or black or brown color there popping up on the infrared satellite. That's more thunderstorms really trying to blow up around the outer periphery of Fiona's eye. But the center is right in here. There is the coast that you are concerned with, and it's moving in that direction. So it is going to be, it looks likely, at least to me, that a landfall is going to happen on that side of the Dominican Republic. I'm going to turn on it did. I don't know if you were with us at that point. We were showing that the high-res hurricane model was doing a nice job, and really one of the only things kind of showing that western thing, but it really dove right in to the Dominican Republic. I will zoom this out and kind of show you what happened, and really I believe that I can do the past track on this. This is now Radar Omega, if you're a weather nerd as well. This is a cool little product that you can see everything, but you can kind of, let me turn off the satellite real quick. You can see the path that this took. Yesterday, it was looking more likely like it was going to do kind of one of these. When I was talking to Joan about the storm surge would be at its greatest overnight, because it looked like it was going to come like this and then work its way out and then kind of fill up the bay in that direction. What we saw, though, overnight, you see the track here, it continued this way and then decided to do it. And again, it's one of the reasons why on the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center, they have a cone, because especially when you're dealing with a lot of physics and dynamics and meteorological things going on inside of the eye of the hurricane, and an intensifying one at that, a lot of times you can get those wobbles. And in interviews that I've done with the director of the National Hurricane Center, he says it the best, that little wobbles matter. And this is one of those times that a wobble mattered, because there was land in play. And instead of continuing on its trajectory like this, like we thought it might yesterday, kind of had that wobble, and it came right in. So again, it stayed within the realm of that cone that the Hurricane Center puts out. Again, the center can bounce around in that cone. But it's wild that it did that. And Ethan, you are correct. It is heading back over water. So right now, and again, we'll be on. I'm planning on staying on here for a little while anyway. So we're gonna get the 11 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center. That should be coming out within the next 10 to 25 minutes here. Sometimes they get it out a little early, but Fiona's position is about right here. And then again, so this is gonna make landfall, Joan, pretty much right where you are, right where you're looking for. Yeah, and it does look like a direct hit. And yesterday, it did not look like that we were going to be impacted directly there. It looked like, again, like I was just drawing, that it was going to head up here, and that you would have to deal with some of the storm surge. So being over land, I know some of the highest mountains, you can kind of see the terrain are over here. But it certainly, being over land, weakened it a little bit. It's all relative, though. So hopefully, and I'm hoping and thinking about your property there, that it's okay and that it gets through. So I'll be very, very interested and anxious to hear what you hear in terms of any kind of storm damage, which I hope is minimal at best. So there is the track. And again, we'll wait for the 11 o'clock advisory. For anybody that's hopping on here that is outside of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, again, we're really going to have to watch this in the Turks and Caicos. Again, just the extreme south side. The Bahamas look okay. I don't think it's going to continue its westerly track. That Cuba would be impacted. So Cuba, we're good. And then Bahamas are looking good. But the Turks and Caicos could be nasty. And you see here the official forecast. So right now, it looks like it's at its worst point. It looks like a widening eye wall, which is the worst part of the storm, is moving onshore now. I will bring back the high-res satellite for you. Just give me 1 second. And we're going to take a look to see what we can see. And this is the 1 minute scan here. So we're going to get a new update every 1 minute. The satellite technology is incredible. But we're going to get close here. I'm going to turn on the motion again, the forward motion. So yeah, they are in the thick of it right now. And then really for the next couple of hours, this is going to be kind of moving through. So really, where you're concerned with through the early afternoon, really the next 4 to 6 hours are going to be the worst time here for your property in Samana. It does have the potential to do that. I think the official forecast, we'll zoom back out and check that, I think was a Cat 2, but closing in on Cat 3 status. So it's the Hurricane Center officially, and we'll see if that changes because of how healthy the storm still looks over land. But they have it as a 110 mile per hour category 2. Now, category 3 starts at 115. So it's not that far off. At that point, it's pretty much I mean, you're on the cusp of a major hurricane leaving that. And again, the forecast might be underdone, unfortunately, because of how warm that water is. It is jet fuel. When it looked like it had it is, Joan, and I know it's just like, wish you can just push it out of the way and get out of here. One of the reasons for people that are watching from the lower 48 and especially the southeast corner of the United States, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, there was at least a time that there were a couple of rogue model runs that showed this thing coming right into Florida early on, probably about 3 or 4 days ago. And one of the reasons why the models were just like all over the place was, number one, we didn't really have good Hurricane Hunter aircraft data in and around the storm yet. So we started to get better data. But one of the reasons why was because of the very slow steering current that we had in the Atlantic, kind of in between a couple of systems to not really push it along. So oftentimes, so two questions. Ethan asking why it's looking healthy. It did not go over a lot of terrain, so it's certainly. I'll show you the past. I'm going to go back a little bit further. So it certainly has lost a little bit of its punch compared to where it was as it was coming ashore initially in the Dominican Republic. When I mean healthy is it's still firing off some thunderstorms. You will see this ramp up. It wasn't completely torn apart because it did miss the highest peaks of the Dominican Republic. So it stayed relatively healthy. Let me take the track off and you can see the eye prior to it closing. So it definitely did lose its punch. But it's still, again, structurally, it doesn't have to rebuild its structure, is what I should say. A lot of times when a storm goes over land, it completely loses its kind of compact disc look, and then it has to kind of start from scratch again. This is something that as soon as it leaves land, that it's going to be able to continue its intensification process rather quickly. So meaning it doesn't have to kind of tear it down and start over again. I'm going to put that into motion. So, and I'll show you that it did lose its punch, but it's still, again, relatively intact. Maybe that's a better word than using healthy. So Maria made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane. It had been a Category 5. Now, there, and then there is the eye. So you can see that little speck, and then you can see it kind of close off. So again, a sign that it weakened, but its kind of structure is still there. So as soon as it gets out in here, it's going to have the opportunity again to ramp up pretty quick as it repairs itself. So back to Maria. It was a Category 4 hurricane officially at landfall, but it was very close to Cat 5 status. And what happened was it was doing something. And again, it's all for the historical purposes. It would not have mattered really if it was a Cat 4 or Cat 5 because it was on the cusp. It moved through parts of the Leeward Islands as a Category 5. It was doing something known as an eyewall replacement cycle. It's whenever these very intense hurricanes go through, it kind of tears itself apart to then build itself back up stronger again. So it was doing that while it was making landfall. So Maria could have been even stronger. It could have been even stronger. Obviously, we know what it did to the island as a strong Cat 4. But I think it had winds of, at one point, 185 miles an hour, I want to say. Or 175. It was up in that ballpark. I'm confusing Irma It might be, they may have both been 185. That was just a crazy stretch of storms with Irma and Maria back in 2017. So it might be confusing, but I mean, they are both up there in the upper echelon of hurricanes and certainly hurricane impacts. So it's so fascinating. And when you see the video from hurricane hunters that fly in here and you just get that stadium effect where they are flying and just, it looks like there's no storm at all. You can see the sun right through it. And what that is and what that is from, I can get a diagram maybe the next time to kind of show you, but you have on the outer periphery of the storm, you have the eye wall. That's where you have the rising motion of the thunderstorms building and bubbling up. In the eye, you have something going on known as subsidence, and that is sinking air. So you have air sinking in the center of the hurricane, and what that does, sinking air dries out the atmosphere. So within the eye, you have completely calm winds. You can see the sunshine. You can see the sunshine. And it's crazy. And oftentimes, especially way back in the day before satellites were there and before people really understood hurricanes, people that just took the worst of the storm, the eye wall, and then saw sunshine, thought the storm was over, and then they still had the back half of the eye wall to go as the storm continued to move over. So it always gives a false sense of security. But for that 30 minutes, give or take, of just how peaceful it is after things have just been so destructive is crazy. And it's one of the other reasons why, because you have these banding features, if you will, where you have sinking air, then rising air, then sinking air. Oftentimes before a hurricane makes landfall, it's some of the nicest weather that you can have because of that subsidence, that sinking air on the outside of a hurricane. And it's crazy. I read a book called Isaac Storm, and it's a great book if you're into hurricanes and just weather in general. But it was about the Galveston hurricane of 1900, and they were just talking about how incredibly nice the weather was the day before the worst natural disaster in U.S. history in terms of loss of life hit, because they just really didn't know what was out there. So satellite technology has just helped on that front so much. But yeah, no, I'm with you. It's fascinating. One of my friends who I work with, another meteorologist, she was 5 years old in Hurricane Andrew in South Florida. And her family lost their house in Hurricane Andrew, and she remembers going out in the eye and it being completely calm after literally just fighting for their lives in their bathroom. Just a crazy story, and that's no doubt why she became a meteorologist, because she was 5 years old when Andrew came through. But anyway, you're welcome. It's a great book. It's a great book. All right, so back to, as we wait for the 11 o'clock advisory, the official update from the National Hurricane Center. Still waiting on that. It has not come out yet, to the best of my knowledge. It's at 10:48 right now, so it should be coming out momentarily. And want to welcome all of the new people that are watching. If you're new to the channel, we talk weather all the time. Oh, and just as I was looking that up, I saw that video again that you were alluding to about the bridge being washed out in Puerto Rico. But feel free to share this with any family or friends that you have. Again, we always talk weather on this channel, and unfortunately, we're talking about it here. Just looking at some of the updates here on Twitter to see. So, and that's just something I saw on Twitter. Again, when we were talking about the westerly track, um, it reminds me of a lot of times, and we were talking about some of the uncertainty with this, and specifically with how far west this thing came. Interaction with the Caribbean islands is also one of the hardest things to forecast because there's so much land interaction, there's so much terrain involved, and that can also cause these things to do weird things like what we saw overnight tonight and right now with how far west this thing went. So no doubt the interaction with Puerto Rico and the Mona Passage there, again, likely led to some of the erratic motion and why we have seen this kind of continue in that direction. Okay, now back to the, go back to the Twitter here to see if that 11 o'clock advisory has in fact come out. Not yet. We are still waiting for the advisory to come out. I really appreciate that. No, that's awesome. I like to. I know you said that you were a weather nerd, and again, I really appreciate that. And I like to talk weather with everybody, and it's nice to have a community where we can where we can talk about this. I wish it wasn't impacting so many family and friends on this channel, but you know, it's awesome to have this with you guys. So I really appreciate that, and I welcome everybody new here, and would love to have you guys on board as we kind of track the weather again, specifically in the Caribbean and in the lower 48 of the United States as well. Hey, what's going on? How are things going in the Dominican Republic? I remember you from yesterday. Welcome back again. I hope that you are safe, and I hope that you are doing okay, and you're not seeing too much damage in the Dominican Republic. Thanks, Ethan. I appreciate it, and it's great to talk about the weather with you as well. I love that you brought up again the 6E GFS, and I love getting technical like that to break things down. So we will no doubt be doing that going forward as well. And again, I like to share that. I know there's a lot of people that love the weather, and so it's great. It is great to have you guys, and I really appreciate you guys sharing the channel and sharing this video and helping to get our friends you know, through this awful time as well. I love watching hurricanes when they are out in the middle of the ocean doing their thing. As we were talking about, they look so peaceful sometimes when they are just out in the middle of the ocean or when you're in the eye, and it's just a huge contrast to what's going on right now. So that's not what I didn't want to hear, that it is looking crazy. I mean, what we're looking at on satellite, and I'm gonna zoom back in now to show you like what exactly is going on again as we wait for the update here. The close look, I'm gonna bring up the visible satellite to kind of see some of the thunderstorms, and we only get visible satellite as you may imagine. So this is, you can kind of see this a little bit better. You can see the difference in texture here. These are some of the thunderstorms building. This is this donut shape here. Right in here, this is the eye wall. So this is the nastiest part of the nasty, if you will. Yeah, Justin, welcome to the channel, my man. He says back over the water within an hour. We actually have it. There's the center, and then here is the land. So we actually have it back over the bay right now. But in its lifetime, or to leave the Dominican Republic, yeah, it's going to be about that before it kind of hops back in this direction and then goes out here. So I'm not sure. Oh, Joan, there it is. She says, got some pics of a home on top of the mountain about an hour ago. The ocean was very turbulent and the high winds then. So right now, it's probably even a little bit worse than that. Hopefully, things have been able to withstand all of that. They don't have much longer to go of the most intense part of the storm. So hopefully things are holding strong there and everything is okay with the condo. Justin, not sure where you were watching from, if you're tuning in from the Dominican or Puerto Rico, and I will show you the latest from Puerto Rico in a second, as again, we're waiting for the 11 o'clock advisory to see what has been found from the hurricane hunters that have been up in the storm. They don't fly over land, so that's the other thing. Hurricane hunters don't fly over land, so we likely don't have new pressure and wind data coming in. I think it might, Joan. And again, we were talking yesterday. I didn't think that we would see this thing go that far west. I thought it would be right out here. And the center is about right here. So again, that's how much it came. So, and it came in just like this. And I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, you are about in here. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think you're about right there, give or take, or maybe it was a little further down here towards. Actually, I take that back. I think you're a little more down here. So sorry about that. My high res geography of this part of the Dominican anyway isn't the best, but I am learning alongside you guys in terms of that. Hey Justin, I really appreciate that. Okay, he says no, so I apologize. So we're gonna find out exactly where you are, and we're gonna give you a detailed look. But yeah, in terms of the condo might be right in the eye. Same, especially with you pointing that out. More down. Okay. Hey, maybe I was close anyway. So the good thing is, I'm waiting for it to pop up. I remember the name, I just... Maybe right on in here. Yeah, Ethan, I am anxiously awaiting that the 12Z run for you too, and hoping the GFS kind of wash that out, but that is going to be something. As soon as we get the 11 o'clock advisory, what I'm going to do is we're going to talk about what the 11 o'clock advisory is, and that should be out any minute now from the National Hurricane Center. Then we're going to take a look at some of the rain in Puerto Rico. And then I'll bring up some of the ensemble members from the previous model runs to just see if they are biting any more shenanigans in the Caribbean. And hopefully that's not the case and everything too. So, yeah. So, again, relatively speaking, good news in the Dominican Republic for where you are. It is still nasty, as you mentioned, where you are. But the worst of it is now moving away from you. So you should at least have, again, it will be a little rocky for the next several hours, but it is getting better where you are. Justin, no, you hit the nail on the head there, and thank you again. It's crazy how it's held together. We were talking a little bit about how healthy it looked, again, relatively speaking, that it did miss some of the higher elevation from the eastern side of the Dominican, so it didn't really tear it apart. So this thing is really not going to have to start from scratch. Once it gets back out over the water, it's just going to be able to it's just a little blip, if you will, a blip in the radar, for lack of a better term, or a little hiccup, that its intensification stopped over land, but it wasn't really disrupted much, and it's going to I I figured that's what you meant. But wow. And you can see it here, and to Justin's point again about it it's firing off more thunderstorms. And I mean, these are very intense thunderstorms on the northern side. Yeah, autocorrect's the worst. It is the worst. So there's some really nasty weather in and around Samana there and on that eastern coast. All right, let's see here if the Hurricane Center has... All right, so there it is, the fresh update from the National Hurricane Center as of 11 o'clock now. It has weakened as we thought it would overland. I know they normally these things come out at like 15 minutes prior to the hour, but I guess they must have been waiting for some kind of new scan or update or something. We now have a 85 mile per hour Category 1 hurricane. Again, it's really the same intensity. It only dropped 5 miles an hour, and that's because of its interaction with land. And I'll pull that up here to see what this is. And again, these colors I have kind of overlaid are where we're still seeing hurricane force wind gusts. I can't imagine. I hope all your friends and family are okay down there. I know that you said that you were in a shelter last night, and I hope that everything is okay there. Do you guys have power? Have you been able to hold the power as well? Yeah, you know, that is, especially in the Dominican, oftentimes the Dominican is at unfortunately the people's expense. It's a hurricane killer. It did find the sweet spot though, where the terrain isn't that bad, in terms of being able to kind of rip a hurricane. And you saw that highlight here. That just came in real time. So that just updated here. And then there you go. It's super odd. Okay, so no power. Sorry to hear that. No, saving your battery is good. What I want to do, because I shared this yesterday, and again, sorry for getting all up in your face as I reach towards the computer. I want to post a link, especially since I do not speak Spanish, and I apologize for not knowing much in that realm, but I do want to pass along the key messages here. It looks like they've taken that away. I don't know why they would have done that. So bear with me real quick. And I'm going to try to get you guys some good information. That is impressive, and honestly, it's from what I've learned over the past 24 hours meeting you guys. I am kind of awestruck here at how many people know English, or are bilingual, know multiple languages very, very well. That is extremely impressive to me, and so that's awesome. Hey, Berlinda, it looks like you were new to the channel. That is true. I just mean to be able to give some of this potentially life-saving information. It's amazing how far that the channel has been reaching people so far away geographically. So that's what I mean, just by that part. So that's why I was saying sorry that I wasn't able to help more people, not knowing much Spanish. But welcome to the channel, Berlinda. I hope that you have found this this helpful. Yeah, no, Google Translate is great. I'm with you on that. You know, I don't have any videos on the impact of global warming on the weather, but that is a good idea to get into that for sure. Just right off the bat, one of the main things here when we're talking about the impact of a warming climate on these tropical systems is the fact that the water is warmer. That is their fuel. So we're seeing these things. Maybe not, it's not the number of hurricanes. I know a lot of people this year have come out and say, well, what happened to that global warming? There's not many storms this year, and it's a quiet season. And it's not so much the number of storms that global warming or climate change has an impact on. It's the intensity, and that we're seeing these intensify more and doing it more quickly as well. Oh, what part of Florida, Berlinda? I'm in Florida as well. So it's that, and that these storms are wetter. And I mean, I think we're seeing that on full display here in Puerto Rico with how wet this storm is, the slow rate of speed. And that is also something that is studied as well, is how slow that it might have something to do with the speed. So back at it here. Thanks, Justin. I appreciate that, my man. Oh, that's awesome in Kissimmee. That's perfect. I'm just north of Orlando. That's awesome. Oh, sweet, in Titusville. I didn't know you were. That's fantastic. Titusville is awesome. That's perfect. I was down in the Kissimmee St. Cloud area recently, and Titusville. Gosh, for those launches, those rocket launches are crazy. So glad to see those are starting, or really have been crazy lately. Hopefully, we can get that Artemis launch off sometime soon. I forgot to bring this up because we got into so many conversations here, but I want to show you here real quick. It looks like Fiona is over the water. It's over the bay right now. So here is where, let me take off the wind field. So this is the wind field. So where you are, this is where, so we're still dealing with some hurricane force wind gusts. Where we have the people watching from on the southern side of the Dominican Republic. We have a couple there tuning in. We also have tropical storm force winds, at least now from what the hurricane hunters, looks like we still have on the extreme western side of Puerto Rico. We're still getting a tropical storm force wind gust every now and then. Oh, Justin's in the UK. My wife and I were watching some of the coverage from overseas on the Queen's funeral this morning. We were up early watching that. Crazy showing, as you would expect. The people lining the streets. It was a crazy sight to see. Okay, so that's where the cruise ships are coming in. So anyway, hurricane force winds are still extending to the other side of the bay. We have tropical storm force winds still where you are watching from in the Dominican Republic. So let me turn off this wind. I'm going to turn off the wind colors here so we can kind of see where, because Justin wanted to know where the center was. And here is the latest position. And again, this coming in right from the National Hurricane Center. So it's back over water. It's over the bay. Here is the northern end. And it looks like, again, now that forecast, Joan, is going pretty much right over your condo. Here is the land. There is the center eye path there, and it's not going to deviate much from that because, I mean, it's so close to land now. So, Justin, it's over the bay, and it's going to get out. Here's the northern end of the coastline, right in here. So it's not... So it just has to travel over that little chunk, and then it's back over. And then here we go with the Atlantic Ocean up in here. So I'm not exactly sure how wide it is. It looks like it's closed now. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was last night, but you can kind of see if you look. Turn the track off now so we can watch this. Oh, and there it is, just popping up here on my map. And we get real close. It's going to get a little grainy because we're getting so close in here. But this is the GO-16 satellite, the rapid update 1 minute scan. So we get a fresh scan every minute. And I'm going to toggle between the visible and the infrared. Let's see, go into check out the water vapor, try to see different parts of the structure here. I do think it's going to make another landfall in the Dominican Republic. Yeah, I made the one last night early this morning, and it's going to make another one pretty much right where we are watching in a little bit. To try to turn on the 3D view of the satellite to see if we can pull in that. So stand by as we wait for that to load. I feel really, really bad for the Dominican Republic as well. Awesome. Thanks, Justin. We'll be here. Thank you for that pinhole eye. Okay, just going back. How long will it rain? So since we have a question, I'm going to go to that model forecast. Since we have a question, we'll see if we can get the 3D to load. But I'm going to bring up this to kind of give you an hour-by-hour look here. This is the high-res hurricane model, and this one actually did a very nice job at showing that westerly jog. So I have a lot of confidence in this. Here we go. This is at 2 o'clock. So this is now 2 o'clock local time. The center is back over water and strengthening. So we're still dealing with tropical storm conditions where you are at in the Dominican. And notice again, kind of like what we dealt with Puerto Rico. And also note by 4 to 5 o'clock in Puerto Rico. So if I still have people watching from Puerto Rico or care about people in Puerto Rico, it looks like most of the heavy stuff is finally over as we get into the middle of the afternoon. So in between 3 and 5 o'clock, the concerning rain is going to be over. It's just going to be a few light showers, but that's going to help the river situation improve greatly later on this afternoon. This is the H Wharf. Yes, this is the Hurricane Wharf, the pride and joy of NOAA in terms of hurricane forecasting. It's a lot of times pretty hot with the intensity. It does ramp these up. very, very quickly sometimes. But in a day and age when a lot of these storms are rapidly intensifying, this hits the nail on the head. It did so with Michael, Hurricane Michael, in 2019. It was the only thing that had it rapidly intensifying into that monster of a storm. So on the southern side of the Dominican Republic, it is still raining at 8 o'clock tonight. Some very healthy rain bands still, even though the center is back over. And then as we get into 10 o'clock tonight, Mr. Rodriguez, we are really finally lightening things up. So give it until about 9 to 10 o'clock tonight. There will be lulls in the action because these will be more of your banding features now, where you might get a nice push of some very, very heavy rain, gusty winds, and then a break. But in terms of this thing being completely over, you'll probably have to wait until like 9 to 10 o'clock tonight. So still late tonight. But conditions as a whole are gradually going to improve for you through the day. So I do want you to know that things are going to get better. Now, Ethan mentioned about the Turks and Caicos, so we're going to look here. And the H-Wharf, again, the hurricane model, will back this up. It does look like they may miss out on a direct strike, at least a landfall in the Turks and Caicos, but still some nasty weather. Look at how much this strengthens, though. This now out in the middle of the Atlantic. Now we're down sub 950, almost sub 940. Again, this has a chance, I think, it's currently forecast. Well, actually, I have not seen that far up on the latest official forecast. We just looked at the pressure and the track in terms of it making landfall. So I'll look at that alongside you now. Oh, and there is the 3D radar. So we have the 3D radar now to see where the thunderstorms are kind of fortunately blossoming in here. Or the 3D satellite. And you can kind of see the jagged nature of the clouds. So cool view, but I wish we were watching this over the open waters. So still forecast to become a Category 3 hurricane. Let's see what they have done, if they've made any changes. And then there is its path. So Bermuda is still well within the cone as expected there. Expecting winds of 120 miles an hour, gusts maybe 150. So I do think it does have a chance to make a run at Cat 4 status. There is a cold front coming off of the east coast of the United States, which is one of the saving graces from allowing this to come further west. It's going to push it away from Florida and push it away from South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina as well. But it may start to induce a little bit of shear, which would limit its intensity. The water really, really warm up there. If you remember Hurricane Danielle a couple weeks ago, that was just kind of meandering in the North Atlantic. That could also be in part why we are seeing a relatively quiet season. Again, I use that quiet loosely, especially as we are being impacted so much by this storm in Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic and the Virgin Islands and parts of the Leeward Islands a couple days ago. But as a whole from a season, this is why as a meteorologist, I always preach it only takes one. It only takes one. And unfortunately for us in the DR and in Puerto Rico, this is hopefully just our one of the season. But again, just devastating with the amount of rain that is coming through. So as we go back to the high-res radar, look at that. It does get its sub 940 millibars. So that is a strengthening system. And it looks like it's trying to wobble out 936. Where is Bermuda? And so this is going to be a big extratropical low now up into the North Atlantic. So as I was saying, wow, that's insane that the UV index is still that high. So, yeah, the North Atlantic, the main development region in between the Lesser Antilles and Africa and the Cabo Verde Islands, that's been running about normal, maybe a little bit below even. And that was because of how prolific the Saharan dust was this year. It's one of the reasons the season as a whole, again, has been kept at bay, again, until now. And thankfully, at least behind this, there were no other active tropical waves. There's, I think, one other one, but that's in the Central Atlantic. It's not going to hurt anything. If somebody happens to be watching from Bermuda, here is Bermuda, at least on the H wharf. It wants to keep the center out here, but man, that is a nasty band of very heavy rain, and it does get it into the outer eye wall, at least on that update. And that could be a Category 4 storm. 939 millibars is a very low storm, pressure-wise, very strong. Let's check out, I'm going to switch to the wind speed here. As I wait for that to load. Look at that. Man. So look at some of the wind speeds in here. That's 100 knots. 105 knot. I mean, wow. So that's going to be, that would be rough. I mean, that is well within hurricane conditions. Hey, Justin, thanks for coming back with us. Well within hurricane conditions on Bermuda in a couple of days. This is overnight on September 23rd. So that's not going to be pretty. I think it was Justin that even mentioned for Bermuda and parts of the Turks and Caicos. So just awful stuff. And that was kind of the model showing that yesterday. So there was the model last night, and it did unfortunately did a very good job showing that westerly track. It's a very high resolution model, and it can sometimes pick up on some of those mesoscale, those small scale features in the eye and some of the land interaction that's going on as well. So what I want to do is I want to head back to the Puerto Rico radar real quick, and let me see here. Stand by, just switching the data to the radar screen. We're going to check out Puerto Rico, and then if Ethan, I don't know if you're still with us, I'll pull up that ensemble in a couple of minutes, and we'll kind of look at that in real time. To see what that 60 was, and then hopefully dissect a much better looking 12Z model. So now I know that since you're from Titusville, that really got your attention, or at least live in Titusville, that would no doubt get your attention. So the rain is not as intense as it was last night in Puerto Rico. San Juan, though, we are still getting that very heavy rain. Santa Isabel, Ponce, we're taking a break. And again, most of the tropical storm winds now have left the island. You may be able to gust to that still in Puerto Rico, but really heavy rain. And there's more of a positive note. The flash flood warning, where some of your family, if you are still with us, that has the name of the town is escaping me right now. I'll zoom in and see if it'll pop up, but I know it's in the western side. I have so many towns in my head, and I can't remember San Sebastian. I believe it was San Sebastian, and forgive me if I'm wrong. Where you have family. Their flash flood warning has been canceled. So again, it's a mess in Puerto Rico. I know that, I understand that, but I'm trying to shed a little bit of positive light anyway, that the worst is over. It is still raining incredibly hard on the eastern side of the island from Santa Isabel to Arroyo onto the west side of San Juan. The western side, it's a little better, at least central west. We have another push of heavy rain coming in on the western side. Okay, so we remember that correctly, at least in San Sebastian. They're out of their flash flood warning. Things are a little bit better. And real quick, before we go into that data, some of the high res, keep on saying high res, so I just randomly said high res, but the river gauges are doing better, relatively speaking. We have a couple still on the southwest corner that are in major flood stage, but we had a ton of river gauges, ton of rivers out of their banks yesterday. So on this river here in the southwest corner of Puerto Rico, still in major flood stage, but it has crested, it looks like. So, and even some of the things, and I checked the river out that you were telling me yesterday, that you have family outside of San Juan into Bayaman, probably pronouncing that so wrong. And again, I apologize for that. But the Rio de la Plata, it's still in moderate flood stage, but it is coming down. I mean, it's still way, way up there. It's still at 21.57 feet. It's still out of its banks because flood stage is at 16 feet, but it's at least not spiking up with still some heavy rain in there. We will no doubt continue to see that flood potential, but Rio de Bayaman, thank you very much. And I appreciate the help with all that stuff. So I'm gonna put this full screen for you, this radar. And what I'm gonna do, I'll keep talking to you guys, but I'm gonna pull up the latest ensembles, and we're gonna break down that 6Z run here to see if anything is concerning with that, if there's any other guidance in terms of that 6Z run that we can do. Ensembles are certainly a better thing to look at in that stage of the game, especially when the GFS has created a bunch of phantom storms in the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico this year. That's been one of the things that it's been really bad at doing, and I hope that it's the case now that it's doing. All right, so I'm going to change my sector here. And I want to go back to EFS. I'm just talking to myself. Don't mind me. Seeing if there's any more comments in here. Excellent. Well, no, that is good. Thanks, Joan. I will continue to do that. I will continue to share the info. I'm glad that you're finding it helpful. I'm glad that it's helpful, and I'm sorry it did come so far to the west. Okay, what is going on here? Bear with me. I'm just trying to pull up these ensembles. It's taking forever. Okay, so what we are looking at now is the radar still. But this is the European ensemble. So since I'm on that, we're just going to start with that. And basically, the ensembles I always like to say are like it's like a band ensemble. It's made up of many different parts. There's different initial conditions put into the model, so it's a little different than some of those spaghetti plots that you see. Still look the same, but those are the actual global models, the actual model itself, and then the hurricane models that are run. Um, but so this is the 6E. So the ensembles here, and what we're basically looking at here is the brighter the yellow or orange, it's more of a consensus showing up. The numbers there are the pressure. So from the 6Z run of the European, it doesn't go out that far because it's not completely loaded yet. It is showing a little development in the Caribbean. There is the 0Z run from last night, and you did mention that the European had it. Sorry for the loading. Okay, so that has my attention. I've not looked that long range. This is October 1st. So this is still 10 days away. So I do want to caution that, but we do have a couple of models hinting at that. No, the icon, that's the German icon, it does do a pretty good job with hurricane forecasts, especially in the short term. But there's the European ensembles, and it is showing development here in the Western Caribbean and then the Eastern Gulf of Mexico. So it's something to pay attention to. And again, this is exactly the area that we do not want anything in, because the water is insanely warm, insanely deep. The Western Caribbean is just insanely warm. The Gulf of Mexico is very, very warm. So I'm going to change this to the GFS ensembles real quick. Wait for that to load and just see. So this is the 6Z. It has it like we saw in the Eastern Caribbean. So you see how it gets kind of funky? There's so much going on here. Thanks, Joan. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys so much. So this is weird, Ethan. It kind of shows here it has a solution out near the Bahamas, and then it has another cluster out over the Yucatan Peninsula. So it's kind of diverging here, and some take it there. It does look like there's something to watch in the Caribbean. Potentially moving toward Jamaica, maybe Central America, or up through Cuba, like the actual run shows. But I wouldn't get too freaked out on just one model run at this time. And it's 11. I don't think we have anything loaded on the actual model just yet. Because those balloons just went up. Yeah, we don't have anything. So we're still waiting. But yeah, there's that nasty run there. Check the Euro. Yeah, I really, really hope it is just a fluke in the models. Okay, so that L you see there, that is what we have going on as we speak, a strengthening Fiona as we work our way into the next few days. So again, Turks and Caicos, Bermuda, really going to have to watch that. We could have certainly a major hurricane is expected, and I do think we could get that up to Cat 4 status as it gets close by. Okay, so here we go out to the European does not go out as far as the GFS does in terms of time. There's like 380 hours. Again, once you're looking at 380 GFS, 380-hour GFS, you don't put too much stock into that. At the end of this run here, all the way out through September 28th or 29th, again 10 days from now, it does spin up a little something in the Western Caribbean. So something again to pay attention to as we do get into the Caribbean season. The Cabo Verde season starts to shut down as we get to the end of September. That's those tropical waves rolling off of Africa, then making the long trip through the main development region, and then kind of doing what it's doing right now, getting into the Caribbean or Southwest Atlantic, and then kind of blowing up. But something again we're going to keep our minds on. I will be starting on Friday anyway, out of commission for a couple of weeks. I will be out of town and away from the computer, but it'll be something that I watch. I don't have enough subscribers yet to get the community page going. I think you need 500 for that. Certainly the work you did for sharing the page will help with that so that I can just post and talk to you guys that way rather than having to publish a video in addition to that. But just wanted to let you guys know that are still on for that. But it's something that I will no doubt be watching as we continue through hurricane season. And then if you guys like snow, once we are done with that, I'll be talking about the cold, hopefully coming back to the northern tier of the country and hopefully some big time snowstorms this year. At least, we can all have fun with that, watching it from warmer climates. But thank you again, Joan, for sharing. Thank you everybody for sharing this page and with your friends and subscribing. It's been awesome to get to meet you guys over the past couple of days. I wish again it was under some better circumstances here. But I'm thinking about you guys that are being impacted and praying for everybody's property and life and friends and everything like that. And we'll continue to monitor this situation for you, of course, all day today. Jones said living in South Florida for 20 years. It's amazing. It is amazing. It is amazing how many just kind of pop up like that. You can seemingly be going fine and then bam. But as soon as we clear this, I'm going to start to get back on to the more of the long range stuff and breakdown. I always say in some of my other videos that there's a lot of garbage on social media that's used for clickbait and used for just scare tactics. I hate that. I like to go in depth and to break it down meteorologically. There's so many things like El Nino, La Nina, the Madden-Julian oscillation, and things like that really come into play, and you can tell if a model is just out to lunch and all that things like that. And I know that obviously there are lives on the line, especially when you're talking about hurricanes, not so much snow. Are you a fan of the Bills? They're looking good this year. My wife went to school in Syracuse, so she's done with the snow as well. And I'm from Western Pennsylvania in Pittsburgh originally, so I kind of love snow, so I'm in the wrong place for that at the moment. You got it, and I really appreciate you guys again tuning in. I'm gonna keep a close eye on this for you, be around on the Twitter and everything, and hoping this all shuts off very, very soon. But thank you guys. I'm gonna go get some water, and you guys do need some rain. I know the Lake Mead situation is horrible. I've been following that closely. The drought situation is insane. I'm hoping that I can post a video about rain coming to California, but that doesn't look likely. But I've not looked long range out for California in particular yet, since the tropics kind of flared up and was focused on trying to alert the Caribbean and trying to give them some good forecasts. But I will look into that as well to see if there's any kind of huge pattern shift. We typically want an El Nino for that, but then we don't want all the rain at once to cause all the mudslides. But we need to get those fires out, and we need to do just that stuff for wine country and the crops, and then of course hopefully it snows a lot in the Sierra Nevada up there to help the economy in the ski season coming up. But yeah, rooting for that as well. We need a lot of that stuff. That's awesome. I'm gonna jump on your bandwagon as well. I felt awful with how things ended for you guys last year. I texted a friend who's a Bills fan once that happened, and I was like, congratulations. And I guess you never give Patrick Mahomes 13 seconds left on the clock. But they look good this year. I'm going to try to tune into some of that game tonight. So hopefully that game can be a distraction for you this evening later as well. Packers all the way. So you beat my Steelers in the Super Bowl a few years ago. But the Packers are good too. I lived in Minnesota for 4 years, and I know about that Packers rivalry, and have a couple of very good Packers friends as well. So, alrighty, guys. Again, we are watching Fiona. It's going to exit out into the Atlantic over the next couple of hours and then strengthen again. We're going to continue to stay on top of this for you. I'll likely have another video posted at some time tomorrow. And we'll be watching this very, very closely. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you for sharing this. It's been great meeting you. Again, I wish it was under different terms, but I love having these weather conversations with you. And hopefully next time it's not impacting family and friends, and we can just kind of watch over the open waters or track the snow, something that isn't so devastating. But thank you guys. I'll continue to give you guys some great information, or hopefully great information that you find helpful, and we will catch you next time. Again, please share this. I know you have, and have them subscribe, and we'll have more weather conversations. I love the community that we've kind of started to build together, and it's all thanks to you, because we just started this back in August, so relatively new with the YouTube thing. But I love talking about the weather all the time. So thank you guys for your support and for tuning in. Stay safe. If you are watching still from the Puerto Rico areas and in the Dominican Republic and the Virgin Islands, I appreciate you guys a ton, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Stay safe.